Okay, so we've been talking the last couple days about nonfiction text. And remember the difference between fiction and nonfiction. Um, Fiction is something that's made up, it's not real. And nonfiction is something that actually happened. They're actual true events. We can go back into history and look it up and verify that these things actually happened. And so, since it's so close to Halloween, we're spending the next couple days talking about the Salem Witch Trials, and this is an actual event in history. This actually did occur. There's been a lot written about it, and so you should have already watched the video before this that gave kind of an overview of what happened. So you should have a general idea of what it was about. The little girls that accused the several people of being possessed by the devil and practicing witchcraft. And so we're going to look at a text today. This is an excerpt of a trial of one of the women who was accused of witchcraft. And it's written kind of as a story, but it's still nonfiction. Some nonfiction can be written in a way where it's kind of in story form, but it's still nonfiction. It's still something that actually happened. And so I'm going to go through and read this, and then remember, as I'm reading, go ahead and underline or highlight any words that are unfamiliar, anything you need to look up at the end, and make sure you make annotations off to the side. Make little notes to yourself if there's something you don't understand or something that stands out to you or anything like that, so you can come back to it later and refer back to it, because we're going to be using this again in class later. So it's important that you understand it. So first things first, make sure that you circle the title, because that gives us some information about what this is. This is the trial of Martha Corey. And like I said before, this is a nonfiction passage. So if you want to write that off to the side, it's nonfiction. And go ahead and number the paragraphs. I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. So if you want to go ahead and number those. All right, I'm going to start with paragraph 1. And like I said, as I'm reading, underline, make notes to yourself, annotate off to the side, anything that you need to come back to later. And I'm also going to kind of paraphrase after each paragraph, so we kind of get the main idea. Okay, so follow along with me. Friday, March 11th, 1692 was a day of fasting and prayer in Salem. During the day, the community's minister, the Reverend Samuel Parris, asked the girls to reveal another witch. They did, and the accusation shocked those who heard it, for it implicated Martha Corey, a new but upstanding member of the congregation. Immediately, a delegation was sent to the Corey farm to interview the accused in the hope of clearing up this discrepancy. Martha Corey's sarcastic response to the accusation disheartened the delegation, who immediately called for her arrest. Her trial was the scene of much agitation. In the courtroom, Martha's accusers writhed in agony as they were forced by an unseen power to mimic the witch's every movement. When Martha shifted her feet, the girls did also. When Martha bit her lip, the girls were compelled to bite their own lips, crying out in pain. They saw the specter of a black man bending over the accused and heard the drumbeat calling the witches to convene on the meeting house lawn. Deodat Lawson, a visiting minister, describes the scene. Okay, so this first paragraph, what I see is basically the girls accused Martha Corey of being a witch, and so they go and arrest her. Okay, so that's basically what this first paragraph is about. All right, paragraph 2. On Monday, the 21st of March, the magistrates of Salem appointed to come to examination of Goodwife Corey. At about 12 of the clock, they went into the meeting house, which was thronged with spectators. Mr. Noyes began with a very pertinent and pathetic prayer, and Goodwife Corey being called to answer to what was alleged against her, she desired to go to prayer, which was much wondered at in the presence of so many hundred people. The magistrates told her they would not admit it. They came not there to hear her pray, but to examine her in what was alleged against her. The worshipful Mr. Haythorne asked her why she afflicted those children. She said she did not afflict them. He asked her, who did then? She said, I do not know. How should I know? So the second paragraph, she was arrested. They brought her to trial, and they accused her of being a witch. And she said, I'm not a witch. I didn't do anything to these girls. How should I know what's wrong with them? Okay, so she was claiming her innocence, saying she didn't do it. Okay, paragraph 3. These were most of them at Goodwife Corey's examination, and did vehemently accuse her in the assembly of afflicting them by biting, pinching, strangling, etc., and that they did in their fits see her likeness coming to them and bringing a book to them. She said she had no book. They affirmed she had a yellow bird that used to suck betwixt her fingers, and being asked about it, if they had any familiar spirit that attended her, she said she had no familiarity with any such thing. She was a gospel woman, which title she called herself by. And the afflicted persons told her, she was a gospel witch. Ann Putnam did there affirm that one day when Lieutenant Fuller was at prayer at her father's house, she saw the shape of Goodwife Corey, and she thought Goodwife N praying at the same time to the devil. She was not sure it was Goodwife N. She thought it was, but very sure she saw the shape of Goodwife Corey. The said Corey said they were poor, distracted children, and no heed to be given to what they said. Mr. Haythorne and Mr. Noyes replied it was the judgment of all present they were bewitched, and only she, the accused person, said they were distracted. Okay, so in this paragraph, the girls are accusing her of bothering them, strangling them, biting, pinching, and one of them said that they saw her praying to the devil. And Martha Corey said, no, I never did that. You girls are just you're making things up, and I never did anything like that. And, but the other adults, the judges, they didn't believe her. They said she's the only one saying that she's innocent, and everybody else saying she's a witch, so she must be a witch. All right, in paragraph 4, she denied all that was charged upon her and said they could not prove her a witch. She was that afternoon committed to Salem prison, and after she was in custody, she did not appear to them and afflict them as before. So basically this paragraph is saying they didn't believe her, they convicted her of being a witch, and they sent her to prison. Okay, so since this is written in the form of a story, first of all, we can go back to our notes, our text structures notes. Since this is nonfiction, it's written in a certain structure. We can go back to those notes and, I'm sorry, not our text structure notes, our author's purpose. Remember, our author's purpose, there's 3 reasons that authors write nonfiction text. One is to persuade or try to get us to do something. The other is to inform, which is just to tell us straight facts about something. And the other is to entertain, and that's to tell a story. And so, since this is written in story form, the purpose of this text is to entertain. It's not a happy story. It doesn't have a happy ending or anything like that, but the author is still telling us this in story form and trying to entertain us. Okay, so the author's purpose for this particular passage is to entertain. And since it's written in story form, we can go back to our, if you remember back from the very beginning of the first 6 weeks, we talked about our plot diagram or our plot mountain. And we can fill in the pieces of our plot mountain with this story. So if you remember, at the bottom of our plot mountain is the exposition. And in the exposition, we meet the characters, we set the scene, and the conflict is introduced. Okay, so the exposition for this particular passage is Salem, Massachusetts. That's the setting. That's where it happened. And our character is Martha Corey. And the introduction of the conflict is that she is accused of being a witch. Okay, so you make sure you write that down. The exposition is Salem, Massachusetts. Martha Corey is accused of being a witch. Okay, so the next part of our plot mountain is the rising action. And in the rising action, that's where things kind of start heating up. The ball kind of starts rolling. The conflict is getting more progressing. Okay, so in this passage, the rising action is that they took her to trial, Martha Corey to trial, and accused her of being a witch and bothering the children by biting and strangling them. Okay, so we're leading up to the top of the plot mountain. They're taking her to trial and accusing her of these terrible things. Okay, so next at the very top of our plot mountain is the climax. And remember that climax is the exciting bit. It's where kind of everything kind of comes together, and it's the exciting part of the story. And so the climax of this story is when the witness, Ann Putnam, said that she saw Martha Corey praying to the devil. Okay, so that's at the top of our plot diagram. The climax is Ann Putnam said that she saw Martha Corey praying to the devil. And that's down here a little bit. Okay, so next in our plot diagram is the falling action. And if you remember, the falling action is it's after the climax, after the kind of the shift in the story, and things are kind of starting to resolve and get taken care of. And so the falling action in this passage is Martha Corey denies the charges, and she can't be proven to be a witch. They don't have any evidence to prove that she's actually a witch. Okay, so the action is kind of, we've reached the climax and we're kind of going down now. So she denied the charges, and there was no actual evidence to prove that she was a witch. And at the bottom of our plot mountain is the resolution, and that is kind of where all the loose ends are tied up, and it's the end of the story. And the resolution of this passage is that they sent her to prison anyway, even though they didn't have any actual evidence to convict her of being a witch. They went ahead and sent her to prison, and the girls say that they didn't bother her anymore. Okay, so we've got our plot mountain completely filled in for this particular passage.